Have you ever wondered why your brain feels slower, foggier, or less sharp after 55, as if something inside you is quietly slipping away without explanation, and no one has told you the shocking truth about what's really happening? Because right now, even as you go about your daily life, your brain is shrinking, literally shrinking, at a faster rate than you might expect. And the most alarming part is that you may already be feeling the subtle signs without realizing what's behind them. Because this shrinkage isn't random or inevitable, it's the result of hidden silent processes that accelerate with age, unless you actively intervene. And the first shocking truth is that chronic inflammation inside your body is secretly attacking your brain every single day, creating microscopic damage to neurons, eroding connections, and quietly wearing down the very tissues responsible for memory, focus, and clarity. And each inflammatory meal, each sedentary day, each sleepless night fuels this hidden fire that eats away at your brain structure. And the hippocampus, the memory center, shrinks first, explaining why names slip away, why appointments are forgotten, why you walk into a room and can't remember why you're there. And the second hidden factor accelerating brain shrinkage is unchecked blood sugar. Because even without a diabetes diagnosis, every spike in blood sugar damages delicate blood vessels in the brain, leading to microstrokes, reduced oxygen flow, and gradual starvation of brain cells. And if you've been indulging in sugary snacks, processed carbs, or sweetened drinks, you may be unknowingly flooding your brain with the very fuel that burns it out from the inside. And the third shocking reason your brain shrinks faster after 55 is chronic stress. Because every unresolved worry, every lingering anxiety, every overactive stress response floods your brain with cortisol, a hormone that in small bursts helps you survive, but in chronic doses silently destroys the hippocampus, weakening memory, storage and retrieval, thinning the prefrontal cortex responsible for decision-making, and leaving you more vulnerable to confusion, poor judgment, and emotional swings. And the signs of this stress damage may already be whispering to you. Moments of irritability, forgetfulness, losing track of conversations, struggling to stay organized, but instead of recognizing them as neurological warning signs, they're dismissed as getting older or being busy, and so the damage deepens. And the fourth hidden cause of faster brain shrinkage after 55 is poor sleep, because every night you toss and turn, wake frequently, or cut your sleep short, robs your brain of its natural cleansing cycle. The deep sleep phase, where your brain flushes out toxins like beta amyloid. And without this vital cleaning, waste builds up silently, creating plaques that interfere with neural communication, setting the stage for cognitive decline. And over time, this accumulation physically shrinks brain volume while subtly eroding your ability to think clearly, remember details, and stay mentally sharp. And the fifth shocking contributor is chronic dehydration, because as you age, your sense of thirst diminishes, leading many to drink less water than the brain needs to maintain its electrical activity. And even mild dehydration reduces brain volume, slows neural signaling, and triggers fatigue, confusion, and impaired concentration. And if you've ever felt foggy-headed, tired, or unfocused without knowing why, it may not be just aging, it may be your brain crying out for water. And the sixth factor accelerating shrinkage is nutritional deficiency, because modern diets often lack critical nutrients like omega-3, fatty acids, vitamin D, B vitamins, magnesium, and choline, all essential for maintaining brain structure, repairing neurons, and producing neurotransmitters. And every year of undernourishing your brain compounds the deficit, weakening synapses, reducing neuroplasticity, and quietly diminishing the very circuits that support learning, memory, and focus. And the seventh hidden factor is reduced mental stimulation, because after retirement or slowing down work, many over 55 unconsciously reduce their cognitive challenges, swapping complex thinking for passive entertainment. Yet the brain thrives on novelty, problem solving, and learning new skills. And without this stimulation, neural pathways weaken from underused, pruning away connections in a use it or lose it process that literally reduces brain volume over time. And the eighth shocking factor is social isolation, because shrinking social circles, reduced interactions, and increased loneliness have been shown to accelerate brain shrinkage by depriving the brain of complex social cues, emotional nuance, and conversational problem solving. And if you've been withdrawing socially, even subtly, you may be unknowingly removing critical fuel that keeps your brain engaged, responsive, and adaptable. And the ninth hidden culprit is long-term exposure to environmental toxins, air pollution, pesticides, heavy metals which cross the blood-brain barrier and accumulate silently over decades, triggering inflammation, oxidative stress, and neuronal death. And unless you've actively minimized these exposures through diet, air quality improvements, and detox supporting nutrients, these toxins may already be building a toxic burden that chips away at your brain's health. And the 10th shocking reason is cumulative microvascular damage. The tiny, silent injuries to small blood vessels in your brain caused by years of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or smoking leading to reduced blood flow, silent strokes and gradual tissue loss. And the early signs may appear as minor memory lapses, slight slowing of thought, or reduced multitasking ability. Signs easily dismissed but signaling deeper vascular changes, silently reducing brain size. And together, these hidden factors form a powerful web of forces accelerating brain shrinkage unless actively addressed. But the powerful truth is that each one can be slowed, reversed, or mitigated through small, consistent changes: anti-inflammatory nutrition, rich in antioxidants, healthy fats, and plant-based phytonutrients, daily movement that boosts blood flow and stimulates brain-derived neurotrophic factor, deep restorative sleep supported by a calming nighttime routine, staying hydrated with clean water, nourishing social connections and community engagement, challenging your brain with learning, creativity, and novelty, managing stress with mindfulness, breathing, and relaxation, protecting against toxins through lifestyle and food choices, and proactively managing cardiovascular health through diet and activity, because your brain is not doomed to inevitable shrinkage. It is dynamic, adaptive, and waiting for your support. And each day you choose to nourish, protect, and challenge, it is a day you reclaim brain volume, clarity, and vitality. And so the question stands before you: will you allow these silent forces to continue their hidden erosion? Or will you intervene step by step, choice by choice, to safeguard the very essence of your mind? And as you stand at that crossroads, the hidden forces accelerating brain shrinkage continue their quiet work every moment you delay. Because what no one tells you is that brain atrophy doesn't wait until severe symptoms appear. It begins subtly, invisibly long before forgetting names or losing keys. It starts as slowed thinking, trouble finding words, reduced focus, moments of mental fatigue that seem harmless until they compound. And the most shocking part is that the very solutions are already within your reach. Yet so few act in time, and one of the most powerful yet overlooked keys to preserving brain size and function is movement. Because every step you take, every walk, every stretch sends a surge of oxygen-rich blood into the brain's deepest tissues, nourishing neurons, stimulating growth factors like brain-derived neurotrophic factor that act like fertilizer for your neural networks, encouraging new connections to form old ones to strengthen and damaged ones to repair. And yet modern life keeps so many trapped in sedentary patterns, sitting at desks, sitting in cars, sitting at dinner, sitting in front of screens, creating a silent drought of circulation that slowly starves the brain of its lifeblood. And with each passing year of inactivity, the shrinkage quietly accelerates unnoticed until a health crisis or cognitive decline forces attention. But by then, precious ground has been lost, and the second force you must confront is inflammation. Because chronic low-grade inflammation acts like a smoldering fire in your body, releasing cytokines that pass through the blood-brain barrier, and inflame brain tissue, weakening the structural integrity of neurons, impairing neurotransmitter function, and accelerating the breakdown of white and gray matter. And if your diet is filled with processed foods, excess sugars, refined grains, and industrial seed oils, you may be unknowingly feeding that fire every day, every meal, creating a biochemical environment that quietly corrodes brain volume from the inside out. And breaking this inflammatory cycle requires shifting your plate toward anti-inflammatory foods, fatty fish, rich in omega-3s, leafy greens, colorful berries, nuts, seeds, turmeric, olive oil, each bite delivering compounds that quench inflammation, support cellular repair, and protect brain tissue against oxidative stress. Yet so many over 55 continue to rely on convenience foods, processed snacks and sugary indulgences that fuel the very process accelerating their brain's decline. And the third hidden accelerant is poor sleep hygiene, because while the world sleeps, the brain works activating its glymphatic system, a unique cleaning mechanism that flushes out metabolic waste and toxic proteins accumulated during waking hours. And without sufficient deep, restorative sleep, this cleanup crew is short-staffed, leaving behind debris that builds up silently, forming the plaques and tangles implicated in cognitive decline and dementia. And every night you stay up too late. Every night you scroll in bed. Every night fragmented by noise, light, or discomfort adds to the backlog, inching your brain closer to dysfunction. And the remedy lies not in more sleep, but better sleep, prioritizing consistent sleep and wake times, creating a cool, dark, quiet sleep sanctuary, limiting blue light exposure before bed, and honoring the sacred hours when your brain rejuvenates itself, because protecting sleep is protecting brain volume itself. And the fourth contributor is unmanaged stress, because stress doesn't just exhaust you emotionally, it batters your brain, physically flooding your system with cortisol, a hormone that in chronic doses is neurotoxic to the hippocampus, shrinking the very center of memory. And if your life is filled with chronic worries, pressures, unresolved conflicts, each day adds another layer of invisible wear. And the early signs appear as impatience, forgetfulness, trouble focusing, difficulty switching tasks. But deeper inside, neural circuits are weakening, pruning, under the weight of stress hormones, and managing stress isn't a luxury. It's a neurological imperative requiring daily rituals of calm, whether deep breathing, mindfulness, prayer, nature walks, gratitude journaling, or creative outlets that give your nervous system a break from the unrelenting demands of modern life. And the fifth silent force is nutrient depletion, because the brain requires a constant influx of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and healthy fats to maintain its structure, repair damage, and fuel its intricate chemistry. And yet, as you age, absorption declines, medication use increases, dietary variety narrows, leaving many unknowingly deficient in key nutrients like B12, folate, magnesium, zinc, choline, and vitamin D. And each year of subtle deficiency chips away at brain integrity, weakening the scaffolding of your cognition. And unless you actively replenish these reserves through nutrient-dense whole foods and targeted supplementation, your brain's foundation grows weaker, more vulnerable to shrinkage and dysfunction. And the sixth accelerant is a shrinking social world. Because social interaction is more than companionship, it's cognitive exercise, challenging multiple brain regions simultaneously through conversation, empathy, reading cues, problem-solving, humor, negotiation, storytelling, and every lost connection. Every avoided interaction, every isolated day reduces this mental gym, allowing circuits to atrophy from disuse. And research shows that loneliness and social isolation are not just emotional risks, but predictors of faster brain shrinkage and cognitive decline. And maintaining an active social life, seeking community, nurturing friendships, volunteering, mentoring, participating in group activities isn't just good for your mood. It's life support for your brain's structural and functional health. And the seventh accelerant is reduced novelty and learning, because the brain thrives on challenge, adapts to difficulty, rewires in response to new information, and every new skill, new language, new puzzle, new hobby you pursue sparks neuroplasticity, builds cognitive reserve, and strengthens resilience against age-related loss. And the hidden danger is that many over 55 stop learning, stop challenging themselves, retreat into routine, reducing stimulation, and unknowingly accelerating the pruning of unused connections. And reclaiming growth requires choosing discomfort, choosing curiosity, choosing challenge, seeking out learning opportunities, exploring unfamiliar territory, because each new experience is a scaffold against shrinkage, a buffer against decline. And the eighth silent factor is vascular health, because your brain is fed by an intricate network of tiny blood vessels that must remain clear, flexible, and resilient to deliver oxygen and nutrients. And years of unmanaged high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, or metabolic syndrome damage these vessels, causing tiny blockages, microstrokes, reduced perfusion that gradually starve brain regions, leading to tissue loss and atrophy. and the early signs may appear as mild forgetfulness, slowed thinking, reduced attention span, but the vascular damage is deeper progressive and cumulative, and improving brain perfusion requires controlling blood pressure, eating a heart-healthy diet, moving daily, reducing salt and processed fats, supporting endothelial function with leafy greens, beets, pomegranate and nitric oxide boosting foods because protecting your heart's vessels is protecting your brain's very lifeline. And the ninth hidden factor is toxin exposure because heavy metals like mercury, lead pesticides, air pollution, industrial chemicals accumulate silently over decades, cross the blood-brain barrier, trigger neuroinflammation, and damage mitochondrial function. And unless you've actively minimized exposure through diet, environment, and detox-supporting nutrients, these toxins may already be exerting invisible pressure on your brain's health, accelerating tissue loss and functional decline. And the 10th force is the silent acceptance of decline. The cultural narrative that memory loss, confusion, fog, forgetfulness are inevitable, normal, unavoidable, when the truth is that much of what we call aging is preventable decline driven by modifiable factors, and the habit of resignation is itself a cognitive death sentence, robbing you of the motivation to act, the belief that improvement is possible. And breaking this habit requires reclaiming agency, adopting a mindset of proactive stewardship over your brain's health, choosing daily acts that nourish, protect, challenge, and grow your mind because each day is an opportunity to either feed the forces of shrinkage or fuel the forces of resilience. And the decision lies in every bite, every step, every hour of sleep, every social interaction, every breath of calm, every spark of curiosity. And as you stand at this threshold, the question echoes louder. Will you allow the hidden forces of brain shrinkage to continue their quiet erosion? Or will you intervene fiercely, faithfully, persistently, to reclaim the strength, clarity, and vitality that remain yours to protect? And as you reflect on that choice, the forces that quietly shrink your brain keep pressing forward every day you delay. Because the truth is, time doesn't pause while you consider it. Keeps counting down the hours, the meals, the nights, the habits that either nourish or erode your brain's resilience. And one of the most overlooked accelerants hiding in plain sight is chronic low oxygenation, because as lung capacity naturally declines with age, and as sedentary routines limit deep breathing, your brain may be starving for the oxygen it needs to power energy-hungry neurons, and even subtle reductions in oxygen saturation over time impair mitochondrial function, slow down signal transmission, and contribute to brain fog, fatigue, and eventually tissue loss. And if you've never practiced intentional breathing, never prioritized aerobic exercise that expands lung capacity, never incorporated practices like yoga, deep diaphragmatic breathing, or cardiovascular training, you may be unknowingly depriving your brain of the oxygen that acts as its primary fuel. And the early signs appear as fatigue, poor focus, feeling lightheaded or sleepy despite rest. Yet the deeper consequence is a quiet erosion of cognitive power from cumulative oxygen shortfalls, and reversing this force requires reclaiming breath, expanding lung function, improving circulation, so every part of your brain is fully nourished, because oxygen is not optional. It's the spark of every cognitive process. And the 11th hidden factor is mitochondrial dysfunction, because your brain contains more mitochondria per cell than nearly any other tissue, powering electrical signals, fueling neurotransmitter release, repairing cellular damage, and as you age, mitochondrial efficiency declines under the weight of oxidative stress. Poor diet, environmental toxins, and inflammation, leading to less energy production, more free radical damage, and ultimately neural death that contributes to brain shrinkage. And unless you've actively supported mitochondrial health through antioxidant-rich foods, coenzyme Q10, alpha lipoic acid exercise, and minimizing toxin exposure, your brain's energy engines may already be sputtering, reducing their ability to sustain the tissues that underlie memory, focus, and clarity. And the 12th accelerant is insulin resistance, a metabolic shift that develops silently over years of poor diet, inactivity, and weight gain, causing cells, including neurons, to become less responsive to insulin signals, depriving them of glucose uptake and starving them of fuel despite abundant sugar in the blood. and researchers now call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because of the striking similarities in brain insulin resistance and cognitive decline, and every sugary snack refined carbohydrate. Processed indulgence fuels this resistance, impairing brain metabolism, accelerating plaque buildup, and shrinking the very regions responsible for memory and learning, and yet reversing insulin resistance through low glycemic nutrition, strength training, intermittent fasting, and weight loss, restores insulin sensitivity, improves brain glucose uptake, and protects against this metabolic driver of brain shrinkage. And the 13th hidden force is chronic immune activation. Because every hidden infection, every leaky gut, every autoimmune trigger keeps the immune system in a low-grade state of alert, releasing cytokines and inflammatory molecules that cross into the brain, activating microglia. The brain's immune cells, which when chronically activated begin to damage healthy neurons, prune synapses unnecessarily, and shrink brain volume in an attempt to clean up perceived threats. And unless you've addressed hidden sources of inflammation through gut healing, infection management, anti-inflammatory nutrition, and immune modulation, this internal war continues beneath awareness, quietly gnawing at brain structure. And the 14th accelerant is excess iron accumulation. A hidden factor few test for or suspect, yet iron overload increases with age in some individuals, depositing in brain regions like the basal ganglia and hippocampus, fueling oxidative stress and neurodegeneration, and without monitoring iron stores, ferritin levels, or genetic predispositions to iron retention. Excess iron silently oxidizes brain tissues, accelerating shrinkage and chelating excess iron, or reducing intake under medical guidance becomes a hidden yet critical lever for some to slow brain aging. And the 15th force is cumulative trauma, emotional, psychological, or physical. Because unresolved trauma creates chronic stress patterns, alters brain circuitry, dysregulates the HPA axis, and shifts brain chemistry toward hypervigilance. Anxiety and emotional dysregulation in studies show that lifelong trauma exposure correlates with greater brain shrinkage, thinner cortices, and higher dementia risk, and yet few realize that emotional healing therapy, trauma processing, and nervous system regulation aren't just emotional health practices, but directly protective for brain structure, and by addressing buried wounds, integrating painful experiences, and restoring emotional safety, you quiet the chronic activation that otherwise slowly wears down your brain's architecture. And the 16th factor is sensory deprivation, because the brain thrives on rich sensory input, sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. Yet as people age, hearing loss, vision loss, reduced taste and smell gradually deprive the brain of input, leading to accelerated shrinkage in sensory cortices and associated networks. And research shows that untreated hearing loss is linked to faster brain atrophy and higher dementia risk, and that preserving sensory engagement through hearing aids, vision correction, tactile stimulation, olfactory exposure, and multisensory experiences helps protect against sensory-related brain shrinkage. And the 17th factor is chronic exposure to neurotoxic molds and mycotoxins, invisible threats in water-damaged buildings, old homes, or hidden leaks, which produce airborne toxins that once inhaled cross the blood-brain barrier and trigger neuroinflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, and cognitive decline. And unless remediated and detoxified, mold exposure can silently erode brain volume while causing fatigue, brain fog, memory lapses, and mood changes, mistaken for aging, and identifying and eliminating environmental mold becomes a hidden yet crucial step for some in halting brain shrinkage. And the 18th force is medication side effects, because certain drugs, benzodiazepines, anticholinergics, sleep aids, proton pump inhibitors, statins have been linked to cognitive impairment and accelerated brain atrophy over time. And without regular medication reviews to assess necessity dose and alternatives, some unknowingly accumulate neurological side effects that compound silently year after year. And tapering unnecessary medications under medical guidance, while replacing them with non-pharmacological strategies, can reduce iatrogenic contributors to brain shrinkage. And the 19th factor is excess homocysteine, an amino acid that rises with age when B vitamin status is low and elevated. Homocysteine is directly neurotoxic, increasing oxidative stress, impairing blood vessels and promoting brain atrophy. Yet few screen for or correct it despite simple interventions with methylated B vitamins folate and B12 capable of reducing levels and protecting brain tissue. And the 20th accelerant is reduced cerebral perfusion from neck posture because forward head posture, tight cervical muscles and reduced cervical mobility, compress arteries feeding the brain, subtly reducing blood flow and oxygenation. And over years, this mechanical restriction adds to the multifactorial reduction in brain nourishment and improving cervical mobility posture. And muscle balance can restore flow and protect brain health in a way few consider. And as you gather these hidden forces together, the inflammatory fire, metabolic shifts, vascular insults, toxin exposures, nutrient deficits, lifestyle patterns, emotional wounds, you realize that brain shrinkage is not a random act of fate, but a cumulative, multifaceted process influenced by daily choices, lifelong exposures, and modifiable factors. And the shocking truth is that your brain is more adaptable, more resilient, more responsive to intervention than you've ever been told because each of these forces can be slowed, reversed, or mitigated when addressed with intention, consistency, and comprehensive care. And as you look forward, the challenge is clear. Will you continue on the passive path of hidden erosion? Or will you rise each day with fierce commitment to feed, protect, challenge, and grow the brain that holds your memories, your wisdom, your essence, your future? And even as you recognize these silent forces, the urgency grows stronger because each passing year compounds their effects. Each overlooked symptom deepens their impact. Each ignored choice tightens their grip on the very structure of your brain. And the 21st hidden factor accelerating brain shrinkage after 55 is chronic low-grade hypoglycemia. Because while high blood sugar damages neurons, recurrent low blood sugar episodes quietly starve the brain's energy supply, leading to micro-injuries that erode neural integrity. And if you've experienced shakiness, irritability, dizziness, confusion between meals, or at night, your brain may already be signaling this hidden energy crisis because the brain depends on stable glucose availability to fuel neurotransmission, synaptic activity, and repair processes. And unless blood sugar stability is prioritized through balanced macronutrient intake, low glycemic eating, regular meals, and avoiding excessive fasting or sugar crashes, these silent dips chip away at cognitive resilience, leaving behind subtle but cumulative deficits. And the 22nd factor is circadian disruption, because your brain's internal clock governs not just sleep-wake cycles but hormone rhythms, gene expression, synaptic plasticity and neural repair, and irregular sleep patterns, late-night light exposure, shift work, or inconsistent routines desynchronize this clock, impairing memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and neurogenesis. And research shows that circadian misalignment accelerates brain atrophy by disrupting the natural timing of cellular cleanup, repair enzymes, and neurotrophic factors. And protecting your circadian rhythm requires anchoring wake and sleep times to natural light cues, minimizing nighttime artificial light, and aligning meal and activity timing to support optimal brain biology. Because honoring your internal clock is a hidden shield against neurodegeneration. And the 23rd factor is cumulative concussion and microtrauma history. Because even if you've never suffered a diagnosed traumatic brain injury, repeated minor head impacts, falls, sports collisions, accidents create microvascular injury, diffuse axonal injury, and inflammation that accumulate silently, weakening neural networks over decades. And unless rehabilitated and supported with neuroplasticity protocols, these cumulative insults may underlie subtle cognitive slowing, processing speed decline, and structural loss, and addressing them may require targeted neurorehabilitation balance, training visual vestibular therapies, and neuroprotective nutrients, because protecting against progressive decline from old injuries demands active intervention, not passive acceptance. And the 24th force is chronic noise pollution. Because persistent exposure to loud environments, urban noise, traffic, machinery, subtly increases stress hormones, impairs sleep quality, elevates blood pressure, and indirectly accelerates brain tissue loss through cumulative physiological wear. And studies link chronic noise exposure to faster cognitive decline and increased dementia risk. Yet few realize that reclaiming silence, reducing environmental noise, or using soundproofing and noise-canceling strategies can have profound protective effects on brain aging. And the 25th hidden accelerant is chronic gut dysbiosis, because the gut-brain axis connects intestinal microbiota directly to brain health through immune, neural, and hormonal pathways. And an imbalanced gut microbiome increases gut permeability, systemic inflammation, and neuroinflammatory signaling, triggering microglial activation that damages brain tissue. And unless gut health is nurtured through prebiotics, probiotics, fiber-rich plants, fermented foods, and minimizing gut irritants, this hidden gut-driven inflammation quietly undermines brain structure. And the 26th factor is chronic low-grade heavy metal exposure, especially from dental amalgams, old plumbing, contaminated foods, or environmental sources, because metals like mercury, lead, aluminum accumulate in brain tissue, disrupt mitochondrial enzymes, promote oxidative stress, and impair neural detoxification, leading to neurodegenerative acceleration. And unless identified and gently detoxified under supervision, these metals may continue silently eroding brain health despite clean diet and lifestyle efforts. And the 27th factor is polypharmacy, the cumulative effect of multiple medications interacting in ways that impair cognition, increase fall risk, reduce nutrient absorption, or increase anticholinergic burden. And research shows that higher medication counts correlate with faster cognitive decline. Yet many over 55 remain unaware of these interactions until functional deficits emerge, and regular medication reviews, deprescribing unnecessary drugs, and exploring integrative alternatives become essential to reduce pharmacological contributors to brain shrinkage. And the 28th hidden force is chronic sleep apnea, often undiagnosed in older adults, where repeated nighttime oxygen drops impair brain perfusion, increase oxidative stress, and damage hippocampal and cortical structures. And if you've experienced loud snoring, daytime fatigue, morning headaches, or nocturnal awakenings, your brain may already be suffering intermittent hypoxia-driven tissue loss, and sleep studies, CPAP therapy, or airway interventions may be critical in halting this hidden accelerant. And the 29th factor is sedentary retirement. Because the transition from structured work to unstructured retirement often reduces physical, cognitive, and social stimulation, simultaneously accelerating declines in neural networks that previously thrived on challenge, interaction, and purpose. And unless retirement is actively filled with mentally stimulating, physically active, and socially engaging activities, the vacuum created allows neural pruning, disuse atrophy, and accelerated shrinkage. And reframing retirement as a time for growth, contribution, mentorship, learning, travel, volunteering, and skill acquisition transforms it from risk factor to protective buffer. And the 30th factor is chronic low-level viral activation, such as latent herpes viruses, Epstein-Barr virus, or other persistent infections, which can trigger periodic immune activation, microglial priming, and neuroinflammation that erode brain integrity over decades. And research links certain chronic viral exposures to increased dementia risk. Yet few screen or treat these underlying infectious contributors, and addressing viral burden through immune support, antiviral strategies, and reducing reactivation triggers can reduce this hidden inflammatory burden on the brain. And the 31st accelerant is chronic oxidative stress from poor antioxidant defenses, because cumulative exposure to free radicals from metabolism, pollution stress, and inflammation damages lipids, proteins, and DNA within neurons, accelerating aging and shrinkage unless countered by sufficient intake of antioxidants like vitamin C, vitamin E, glutathione polyphenols, and carotenoids. And unless antioxidant defenses are intentionally supported, this biochemical rusting proceeds, silently weakening structural integrity of the brain. And the 32nd factor is prolonged low-grade dehydration, because chronic suboptimal hydration shrinks brain volume, impairs neurotransmission, and reduces lymphatic clearance. And even mild dehydration causes measurable brain shrinkage on imaging studies. Yet thirst perception diminishes with age, leaving many older adults unknowingly underhydrated for years. And prioritizing regular water intake, electrolyte balance, and hydration habits directly preserves brain volume. And the 33rd factor is reduced exposure to natural light and nature, Because time outdoors in sunlight not only supports vitamin D production, but synchronizes circadian rhythms, reduces stress, boosts mood, and improves cerebral blood flow, while chronic indoor confinement deprives the brain of these stimuli, weakening resilience and accelerating functional decline, and prioritizing daily outdoor exposure. Natural settings and sunlight becomes an underappreciated neuroprotective act. And as you tally these silent forces, nutritional, metabolic, inflammatory, vascular, environmental, psychosocial, structural, the picture becomes clear. Brain shrinkage after 55 is not an unavoidable fate, but a multifactorial consequence of modifiable inputs. And each factor you identify, address, and reverse becomes a thread. You weave back into the tapestry of your brain's strength, resilience, and vitality, because the shocking truth is that no single supplement, no magic pill, no quick fix can replace the cumulative effect of small, sustained, intentional choices repeated daily across years. And as you face this knowledge, the question burns brighter. Will you remain passive in the quiet drift of decline? Or will you rise each day as the active architect of your brain's future, protecting the memories, the wisdom, the identity that make you irreplaceably you? And even as you stand at this crossroads, realizing the immense power hidden in your daily choices, there's another layer of urgency that many fail to grasp, that the cumulative nature of these silent forces means that every year of delay, every season of neglect, every decade of overlooked habits deepens the deficit, allowing the quiet erosion to carve deeper grooves into the brain's landscape. And yet the human brain remains astonishingly adaptive, capable of rewiring, healing, and regrowing connections even in later decades, but only when the right signals, nutrients, and challenges are provided consistently. And one of the most overlooked signals is the act of purpose itself, because a brain with a sense of mission, a reason to wake up, a driving why behind its daily actions, activates networks of motivation, planning, reward, and engagement that keep cognitive systems online. Yet many over 55, having retired or reduced work roles, drift into a life lacking clear purpose, unknowingly removing one of the brain's most powerful protective drivers. And research shows that individuals with a strong sense of purpose experience slower cognitive decline, better memory, retention, and even greater longevity. Yet few are encouraged to cultivate purpose beyond career roles, and rediscovering this sense of contribution, whether through volunteering, mentoring, creating, teaching, or nurturing others, becomes not just fulfilling, but neuroprotective, lighting up brain regions that would otherwise fade into disuse. And the 34th hidden factor, accelerating brain shrinkage, is chronic low-grade vestibular dysfunction, because subtle impairments in balance, spatial orientation, or inner ear signaling reduce stimulation to brain regions that process equilibrium, navigation, and proprioception, and these regions atrophy faster when underused. And if you felt a slight decline in balance, occasional dizziness, or reduced confidence on uneven surfaces, your brain may already be compensating for vestibular decline by reducing activity in associated networks, and incorporating balance training. Tai Chi dance or vestibular exercises can rekindle these circuits and protect against shrinkage of balance-related brain areas. And the 35th factor is excessive reliance on external memory aids, because while tools like calendars, reminders, lists, and phone alerts help compensate for lapses, over-reliance without internal cognitive training reduces the brain's own working memory and recall systems, leading to disuse, atrophy. And cultivating memory strategies, mnemonics, visualization, and storytelling, spaced repetition keeps the hippocampus actively engaged and builds cognitive reserve that buffers against age-related decline. And the 36th silent force is chronic emotional suppression, because unprocessed emotions create chronic autonomic dysregulation, heighten stress hormone levels, and dysregulate neurochemical balance. And research shows that long-term emotional suppression correlates with increased amygdala activation, reduced prefrontal cortical thickness, and poorer memory consolidation. And fostering emotional expression through journaling, therapy, creative arts, or safe conversation not only supports emotional health, but physically protects brain structures involved in emotional processing and memory integration. And the 37th factor is persistent low-level inflammation from poor oral health because chronic gum disease, untreated cavities, or periodontal infections release bacteria and inflammatory molecules into the bloodstream, crossing into the brain and triggering neuroinflammation that accelerates cognitive decline. And studies link poor oral hygiene to faster brain shrinkage and higher dementia risk. Yet few connect dental health to brain health and consistent oral care. Professional cleanings and treatment of infections become hidden pillars of neuroprotection. And the 38th factor is cumulative exposure to electromagnetic fields from modern technology. Because while research remains evolving, emerging evidence suggests that chronic high-intensity exposure may affect blood-brain barrier permeability, oxidative stress levels, and neuronal excitability, and practicing moderation device distance, reduced nighttime exposure, and using speaker or wired devices may mitigate potential cumulative effects. And the 39th factor is chronic underuse of fine motor skills, because activities that challenge hand dexterity coordination and precision activate brain regions involved in motor planning, sensory integration, and spatial mapping, and reducing these activities, whether through retirement, automation, or habit shifts, allows associated brain regions to atrophy and integrating crafts, musical instruments, puzzles, drawing, or manual hobbies provides not just enjoyment, but stimulation that preserves neural networks otherwise left idle. And the 40th hidden accelerant is reduced exposure to novelty, because routine and predictability, while comfortable, deprive the brain of challenge and surprise that spark plasticity and seeking new experiences, environments, cultures, cuisines, routes, conversations, and knowledge injects the novelty required to maintain flexible, adaptable brain circuits. And the 41st factor is unaddressed chronic pain, because persistent pain activates brain regions that over time undergo structural and functional changes. With research showing cortical thinning and hippocampal shrinkage in chronic pain sufferers and effective pain management. Whether through physical therapy, integrative modalities, or appropriate interventions, isn't just about comfort, but preserving brain architecture. In the 40-second silent factor is reduced cardiovascular fitness, because the ability of the heart to efficiently pump blood directly affects cerebral perfusion, oxygenation, and nutrient delivery. And low cardiovascular fitness correlates with reduced brain volume, especially in memory-related regions. And even moderate aerobic activity can reverse some perfusion deficits, preserving both function and structure. And the 43rd factor is lifelong cumulative exposure to psychological stress, because stress leaves molecular scars, epigenetic changes, receptor dysregulation, neurotransmitter imbalances that layer over time, subtly shaping brain structure and function in ways that compound silently across decades. And intentional practices to counteract stress, including social bonding, gratitude meditation, humor, and meaning-making rituals, help buffer these lifelong imprints and protect brain tissue from chronic cortisol. Mediated erosion in the 44th factor is reduced intergenerational interaction, because engaging with younger generations challenges the brain to adapt to new ideas, changing norms, and dynamic communication styles, providing cognitive complexity that preserves adaptability, and withdrawing from diverse age interactions limits this stimulation. Narrowing cognitive scope and fostering cross-generational engagement acts as a cognitive gym for flexibility and perspective-taking. And the 45th hidden force is sleep fragmentation from nighttime urination, restless legs, or discomfort, because broken sleep, even without full insomnia, reduces deep sleep stages, critical for brain cleaning and repair, and addressing root causes of sleep fragmentation, preserves these vital restorative processes. And the 46th factor is lack of cognitive challenge in familiar environments, because routine spaces no longer require spatial mapping, wayfinding, or attention to novel stimuli, and exploring new places, rearranging environments, or intentionally navigating unfamiliar settings stimulates hippocampal engagement and neurogenesis. And the 47th factor is reduced empathy engagement, because perspective-taking, compassion, and emotional attunement activate brain circuits beyond logic and memory, and sustained empathy practices preserve neural networks that otherwise shrink from social disengagement. In the 48th hidden factor is failure to address cumulative sensory deprivation from age-related hearing, vision, and touch reduction. because each declining sense reduces multisensory integration that supports memory and cognition and proactive interventions. Hearing aids, vision correction, tactile therapies reopen these inputs, protecting brain networks otherwise underfed. And the 49th factor is under-recognition of hormonal shifts, including estrogen and testosterone decline, because these hormones modulate brain function, neuroplasticity, and neurotransmitter balance. An unaddressed hormonal decline accelerates brain shrinkage, and evaluating and supporting hormonal health becomes a hidden but critical lever for some. And the 50th force is resignation, the quiet, pervasive belief that nothing can change, that decline is destiny, that intervention is futile. And this belief itself suppresses action, reinforcing passivity that allows erosion to continue unchecked. But the antidote lies in knowledge agency and persistent small acts of care. Because the brain remains a living dynamic organ capable of adaptation even after 55, and every step you take, every nutrient you feed it, every challenge you embrace, every stress you calm, every connection you nurture, build scaffolding that holds your memories, your focus, your wisdom, your ability to love, lead, and create. And as you hold all these truths together, the question remains, will you continue on the quiet path of erosion? Or will you step boldly each day onto the path of active, conscious brain stewardship, refusing to let the silent forces shrink the essence of who you are?